What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Best Family Homestead. This video is a little bit different than the content that I normally put out. Me and Robert normally put out on our channels, but it is a beta test for a video that we're looking at collaborating on, because we have all our project cars and that's kind of one of our passions and we love doing it. And so we thought we would share kind of some of what we do in our free time with everybody. So it's kind of a how-to, a little bit of entertainment value, watching us get our old junk running and working on stuff. But there'll be some other cool stuff as far as getting the 66 Army truck I have running, and the Jeeps, and just the stuff we do. But we wanted to kind of test it out and see what you guys thought, get some feedback. So leave us feedback in the comments if you don't mind. Content, we are going to how-to a lot of it, like this video, and kind of show people that maybe don't have a lot of fancy equipment. We're not doing $100,000 restorations by any means, but show people how they can just do stuff in their garage like we do, with minimal tools and a tarp and on the ground. So with that being said, here is our first video we put together, and we're still working on coining the name. The one I coined that I think we're kind of leaning towards is Off Idle Garage, but we are open to suggestions. So if you have a name that you think might be awesome or a suggestion, let us know, and hope you all enjoy. And one last thing, I know that the camera work today wasn't stellar or superb, so you don't need to worry about that comment. That's one thing we're going to be working on, a little bit of lighting equipment and some better kind of mounts and holders for the cameras we don't normally need to use, but we will for the close-up and for some of the angles of the shots we're getting. So that one I know we've got covered. So other than that, input welcome. All right, welcome to the Best Family Homestead. I'm sure you can tell how thrilled I am today. Nah, it's all good. So right here we've got the boys 85, 94, 96 Jeep, hodgepodge of three different Jeeps, and we're going to finish getting it built. I had a bearing go bad in the back. Didn't do much video of doing this Jeep, and we really should have, but just to give you guys a little idea of where we're at, what's going on, we have the pistons out there in the back. I've got new bearings, we've got new injectors. That's kind of what happened to make a bearing go bad, an injector stuck open. And first thing we've got to do is the not fun part of getting everything cleaned back up. Now you see all this thick grease in here. We did that on purpose because we knew with him going to Yellowstone, we wouldn't have much of a chance to work on it. So the first thing we got to do is get in here and get all this lithium grease that we put in. You can see where it looks like it's rusted, but it's not. As soon as we wrap all that grease out, it's going to look good. We're just going to have to hit it one time with a honer, and then from there we will go into reassembling and getting it put back together. As you can see, our 5-star facility here is equipped with everything, including a dirt floor that makes you absolutely horrifically vile. So we're gonna get this tarp under here with any luck, help, I didn't even get it out of my mouth. I can keep that from happening. For some reason, that ding dong really likes to lay in plain tarps. Hey, get off my tarp. Don't get the tarp wet. Moving right along, we got these pistons cleaned, these cylinders cleaned fairly well, and now we've got to get down underneath and clean all the crank journals. You can see where all the grease is there. So if you're under here and you go to turn the motor, you know, to get to where you can clean those other journals for the rods, and it's stuck, it won't turn, don't panic immediately. Check and make sure you've got your vehicle out of gear. I almost said uh-oh, and then I realized what I did. Just a tip. Finish getting this thing clean. Alright, so we got back from the auto parts. Had to get some emery cloth because when he put the grease on the journals, you can see he kind of had a few places where he missed it, didn't grease some areas. So we're going to take some 400 grit emery cloth and just go around on these journals here. Look, and we don't want any surface rust or anything for the bearings to wear on. So now we're going to go through and do that to all these journals and get all the surface rust off.
Alright, so while Aaron is working underneath the motor, I'm going to go ahead and put the rings on these pistons. We've already got the oiling ring on this one. I'll tell you how I'm doing that in just a minute. We'll go ahead and put on these two rings. They have a mark on top to indicate that they face up towards the top of the cylinder. Just work it down into the groove there. Now what you want to do when you get your rings in is make sure that they are offset from one another. So you don't want them to line up like this, otherwise you'll lose compression. So go ahead and turn that so they are opposite of one another. So we've got this one. We're going to go ahead and put it in first, and we're going to make sure we offset it the same as we did the two uppermost rings. And we've got two of these, one at the bottom of that ring and one at the top. So we'll just go ahead and work that down into the groove like so. Again, making sure with these as well that we are keeping them offset. All right, like so. There we go, we got two done. So let's knock out the other four.
All right, so Robert is finishing up on our rings there, getting those pistons ready to go. And we've got a couple things we've got to do before we can start installing. So I polished up the crank journals there for the rods. And like I said, this is kind of rough where oil was not put on top of the cylinder head. So I'm gonna I have my DuraBlock somewhere. You can use a piece of 2x4, anything nice and flat. And I'm just gonna set it on top of this block to make sure I get a really nice mating surface. All right, so we've got the machine surface of our block pretty good. We'll touch it up one more time before we set the head on it. Now, we didn't film the teardown on this engine, but basically what happened is an injector stuck open and caused us to it lost a little bit of compression, and it was getting way too much gas in the number 6 cylinder. We probably didn't have to tear it down and rebearing it, but just to be safe, since this is going to be an 18-year-old Jeep that's heading to college, I decided to go ahead and put new bearings in it. Just the rebearing kit. So we're just putting new rod bearings and rings. And we have me one of those pistons there, sir. Just to recap, in case the teardown is not real hard, but there are some things that you want to make sure of when you take it out. One of those being, all right, so if you look right, hold that for me, sir. If you look right there, you can see the number 2. Make sure and mark your pistons. So on a 4-liter Jeep, the pistons are marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is number 2. And as we put them in, I'll show you there's also a mark on the piston itself that faces, so you know which way faces forward. All right, we've got our glaze buster cylinder honer here. And what this is going to do, we're not trying to take any metal off. All we're really trying to do is polish this. And that will work. So I'm going to be knocking this out, and I'll have Robert is going to start with the putting our bearings back on our piston rods, and at that point we will be ready to start dropping pistons into the motor.
So just want to make sure that that's wiped out, no sand or anything in there. We're obviously not doing a white glove rebuild here. But good thing that these little 4 liters are tough. So you'll see that detent on the bearing matches that right there. So you want to line that up and just kind of click the bearing in. Almost hear it click there. And make sure it's just, there we go. Fits in there nice and good. You don't want it to, you want to make sure it's seated well so you don't get a spun bearing or something like that. Same thing down here. Got our new bearing. Just give this a quick wipe. Make sure there's nothing, no sand or anything like that in there. And same thing, make sure it's lined up. And see the new bearing in there, just like that. Now just a few more to go.
Okay, we are ready to start putting our pistons and rods back in. Do this before you really start anything. So when you have your ring compressor, you compress your rings and you start bumping these pistons down. Once it gets past the lip and goes, there's a good chance it's going to go and slide down in there real fast. And what's going to happen is the hard portion of your rod here will put a nice nick and a burr in your crankshaft. Game over, pull it down, take the crankshaft to the machine shop and have it turn. I'm gonna put a piece of thick vacuum line in here and just kind of tie it so it can't go nowhere. That's it. Now when that rod goes down, it can't hit the machine surface. It's going to hit that piece of line right there. Just a safety thing. I've got some lithium grease here. You only use lithium grease, you can use Lucas, you can use gear oil. You just want to make sure and use some kind of petroleum based product that's going to dissolve into the oil. Just in case for some reason it took an extra 5 seconds for oil to pick up, this metal on metal could cause some serious damage. So to combat that, all I'm going to do is on both sides just put a layer of, I'm using lithium grease. All right, so we've got our ring compressor here, and all we're doing is getting those rings pushed into their grooves. Now we want to make sure this is nice and straight, and we want it to come just down to the bottom of our rings. On these 4 liters, and make sure and look on whatever motor you're building. Make sure you know what the mark is, because different manufacturers use different things. Take a good check and some pictures when you rip it apart is the easiest way to make sure you put it back together correctly. I know that the 4, if it looks like an arrow, points towards the front of the motor. And there we go. This is called plastic gauge. So what we're going to do is, and I'll show you on this one we haven't greased here, when I put my bearing cap back on like this, I'm going to set this piece of plastic gauge on that bearing. And then I'm going to go ahead and torque to spec. I'm going to torque my rod caps. Then I'm going to take my rod cap off and pull it off. And what's going to have happened is this rod cap is going to squash this piece of plastic gauge against the crank. I'm going to take my the gauge that comes with it, and it's going to tell me how many thousandths of clearance I have between the rod bearing and the crankshaft. All right, so like we were talking, putting everything exactly back like it goes. If you look, there's marks, machine marks on the side of this. You want to make sure the machine marks line up, and you can see where I also put a score in it. And I looked, I forgot to say something before I put this up, but it goes right to the left side here. All right, and now I'm gonna put my bolts on, or my nuts on. And my torque spec on this is 33 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, now we just did all that work torquing it up just to pull it off and check our plastic gauge. So you can see we're checking our plastic gauge here. You can see the little green stripe, and all it did was smash that plastic gauge, and then we read about how thick it is. You can see it's about 1,000. Now I did accidentally turn the crank a little bit, so it probably smeared it a little. But for a motor that we're rebuilding, didn't have machine work on, and an older motor, to only have 1,000 inch of clearance, that's not bad.
All right, so we have 5 of 6 cylinders in. I've been knocking them in. Aaron's putting them in at the bottom, and he's spinning it over right now just to make sure it's still spinning with all the cylinders in it. Is it?
Yeah, let me, I'm gonna turn it over one more time.
Okay. I heard a socket drop off, so I got concerned. There we go.
Right now it's more his ratchet issue. Come on. Old worn out ratchet.
There we go.
And that is one complete revolution.
All right, there we go. So I think y'all saw us at earlier in the video how the spring compressor works, or the ring compressor works, I mean. And so this is the last one that we're going to knock in, and then it will have all of its pistons back in it. All right, there you go. See the pistons out of the compressor. I just tap it until Aaron tells me to stop.
And that's good.
That's it. All right, so last cylinder is in, and Aaron is about to spin the engine over again. It is, everything's spinning smooth. Blue is barking in approval.
Back up to almost top dead center all the way around. All right, everybody, so you just saw we got the test rotation. Everything's looking good, and just wanted to
Coming up.
Next time. Yes, we're going to finish this up. This video we're throwing out because me and Robert, I know I've mentioned it on a live, we've been toying with the idea for a while now of doing an automotive channel. I mean, we're going to need to find a few cars because, you know, we don't really have anything to work on. Let's see, right here, like
2, 3, 4, 5.
And then
We're not going to count mine.
yeah, yeah, that was sarcasm, by the way. But we just thought this was kind of like our test video to test the waters, and we wanted to throw it out. We're going to throw it on Best Family Homestead channel and just get some feedback from you guys, what you thought. Obviously, we understand some people have no interest in cars, but it's as much about the filming and the content as it is if it's something you're interested in. So, and then any of you gearheads that are out there, you know, just a little bit of feedback in the comments. What you think, if what we could change better before we get started, and we're going to keep making videos so that we can have some to put out when we start the channel. But I guess knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone here. So now the sun underneath this little awning here, it's only going to move just a little bit further that way, and we're no longer going to have shade. However, where we're working at the old bird farm, the sun is just now going behind the house where we can work without dying. So we're trying to work a little bit smarter and not harder.
Right.
We don't do that very often, but we try sometimes. So now we're going to head over to the old bird farm, and this is actually really easy compared to what we've got over there. And you know what? I was about to be like, all right, let's head over. But before we do, we've got to go through our pile of wood that we cut and get the wood we need to start working on the corner of the house that has some water damage.
You can hear the depression starting there in the voice.
Well, you could see it on his face. You saw he went from smiling to like, Blue is learning the hard way. You don't mess with.
Not all cats are friendly, Blue.
This one is, I don't even know where she came from. She has kittens. Wow.
Blue loves cats. He loves small animals. He doesn't bother the chickens, obviously. He's learning real quick that not all cats are friendly.
Yeah. This one has very much already proven that point to Copper. And she did me because, like I said, she had kittens. And they're not friendly because she's not friendly, and she liked to have taken my face off.
I like the kitten better now.
He's like, yeah, I'm heading over here.